Hi, me again. There is no escape, apparently. AJ Hartley, novelist, Shakespeare professor, BabyMetal fan, and it's 2021. And for the tail end of last year, for the last third of it, I suppose, I was doing videos on sort of walkthroughs of BabyMetal songs, and somebody pointed out that it was like a semester-long course, I suppose. So I guess we're about to start the second semester. I had intended to start this a little bit earlier. I actually constructed a video based on the NHK Kohaku performance that BabyMetal did along with Lisa and Queen, or Brian May and Roger Taylor from Queen, and a few other people, Sarah Brightman, and a boy band called Six Tone or Stone, I believe that's pronounced as, about which I know nothing. Um, but and it was as much a reaction video as it was a real analysis. But no matter how I edited it, it got blocked by NHK. So much for that. And I don't know if I'll try to sort of do something else with that footage. At some point, it seemed kind of a waste of time. I edited it several times, and every time it got blocked. So my hair continues to be ridiculous. So this, I think, is number 16 of the videos that I've done, which puts us about, I don't know, close to halfway through the BabyMetal canon, I suppose. And if you haven't already seen the others, you'll find them on my channel listing. If you go to my actual channel just by clicking on my name, you'll see under videos, you'll see a full list of all the ones I've done, in case you haven't seen some of them. You look down at the bottom of this image, see the first one went up September 10th of last year. In some ways it seems longer. And those early videos are, let me see. Yeah, I was getting something in the vicinity of 6,000. I mean, it's steadily going up, nearly 7,000. The most watched, for some reason, is the Rondo of Nightmares one, which is a little surprising. I guess it attracts a lot of gearheads and musicians. And then we hit the ones where I had copyright issues and had to redo them, and then the numbers dropped down a lot. And in the most recent ones, up around 2,000 views or so per video, or close to it. For some reason, the one that has less than most is the karate one, which I was actually really pleased with. So I don't know why that has missed. So anyway, if you have been watching some of my videos but haven't seen all of them, please go to the actual channel and look under the BabyMetal listing, or just pull up all the videos and you'll be able to see the ones that you have maybe not seen yet. I mean, it's kind of weird when you see the sort of tens of hundreds of thousands of views racked up by the reaction videos of mostly people sitting there saying, wow, that was great. But, that's obviously, this is not what I'm doing. So, you're a select audience. And I'm not going to try to simply rack up numbers by lowering the amount of actual content that I put into the video, for what that's worth. And just to be clear, in case, because somebody asked me, I'm not making any money off this in any way, right? On advertising or anything else. If you're seeing ads, it's because YouTube are putting them there. I don't get anything. So let's just be clear about this. I'm doing these because people seem to be sort of interested. If they stop being interested, I will stop doing them. Okay, that's all. So as I was saying, the Kohaku performance was actually a really interesting one. In many ways, because they weren't doing their own songs. They were, or at least in the section that I recorded, they participated in a group performance of X Japan's Endless Rain, and heavily cut. And it struck me as a real sort of poignant, pained way of getting out of what was a fairly awful 2020, and trying to sort of move beyond it into 2021. Um, and it seemed a very it was interesting to me because it was such a BabyMetal kind of song, and I think particularly Endless Rain leads to songs like No Rain, No Rainbow. That's the closest, and there are even sort of lyrical overlaps. That the moment that Sue Metal sang, that the one line that she got to sing, ends with the phrase, what's she saying? Itsumaremo, Itsumaremo, meaning forever, endlessly, right? I'm wandering forever, and Itsumaremo is the last line of No Rain, No Rainbow. So I thought it was, an interesting choice to have them perform it, and particularly since they were sort of stepping out of their comfort zone in a way. They don't do much TV in Japan, but that's clearly the way that most Japanese bands get really well known. So I don't know if this indicates a shift in the direction of the band in terms of their focus or how they're going to present themselves. Maybe it's just because COVID has cancelled all their previous shows, their world tour. And they're now heading into, 10 shows at the Budokan, which is a big deal. And because, again, of COVID, that's going to be a Japanese audience, pretty much exclusively, as far as I can tell. So maybe, we're seeing a phase where they try to sort of show the Japanese people what they can do, because in some ways they're bigger outside Japan, and I keep seeing video of them being interviewed on Japanese TV, frequently old interviews, in which the real surprise is that people outside Japan know them. That seems to come as a shock to a lot of interviewers, which is odd to us from on the outside. I wonder also if they're making a push to be included in the opening ceremonies of the Olympics, assuming the Olympics still happen, which would be kind of great. I mean, is there a band that more emblematizes that sort of strength and inclusivity and determination, the Olympic spirit, right? In some ways, than BabyMetal. I think they would be great for it. But as I say, I couldn't do that particular video, so I'm now moving into just following the sequence of the songs as they appear on Metal Resistance. I'm up to Amore, which in some ways is actually a great song to begin the new year, in a sort of more upbeat, hopeful kind of way, though frankly that's not a place mentally that I am in yet, though hopefully I will be. Things have been grim, to say the least, in the last week or so here in the US. And so whatever Amore represents is something that we strive for rather than have. Okay. Amore. Okay, so before the vocal even starts, we see, a couple of key elements that are going to be part of the song. All the blue, which is central to this song, and that those images of clouds that we see, and then of course the angel wings, and we see that wonderful image of Sue standing with the wings unfolding behind her, and that image of the angel is going to become something that runs through the song, though it's not expressly there in the lyric. It's clearly there in the design, and I think it's pretty clear in the song as well. So, in terms of what the song means, so we're going to talk about the association and implication of angels.
愛の言葉響け夜空へ宇宙まで届けてアモーレ憂鬱なマグを破って24時間走り続ける走り続けるさ
God, that's so good. Okay, stop being a fan. Okay, I'm supposed to analyze. Man, but it's so good. So, one of the reasons I was connecting this to the ex-Japan song that I was referring to Endless Rain, is it has this same sort of feel as Akatsuki, right, which is also a very ex-Japan sort of song. Again, occupies a similar place on the album. And it's a su-metal solo with the kami band supporting her. And we start off with that first line, Ai no kotoba hibike yozoro e. So let the words of love resound into the night sky. Uchu mare torokete amore. A number of translations that I've seen say, let them bring amore into outer space. But I don't think bring is quite right, because the word torokete means sort of deliver, so it's motion away. I mean, you can have something delivered to you, but unless you specify the preposition, then deliver suggests going away, right? So we're not bringing. The reason I think it matters is that if you say bring, it means the speaker of the song is in outer space, and I don't think that's right. I think that the speaker of the song, and of course, again, as is often the case with these songs, positioning the subject is difficult because the verbs don't make it clear, right? We don't know who the speaker is and where they are in relation to these other things. So, but I think the implication as we go through the song is that the speaker of the song is not out there, but down here on earth. That let the words of love resound has a very sort of stately, quasi-biblical, a number of people have pointed this out. I think Doom Metal mentions this as well, that sort of let there be light kind of statement, right? And I think that's appropriate for lots of reasons that we're going to talk about, in its sort of declamatory desire, sort of sending something out. Yutsu na amagumo yabute, breaking through the gloomy rain clouds. That's why I said we see those sort of cloudy images in the video. 24 jikan hashiri tsuzukeru. 24, 24 jikan, right? Hours. Hashiri, run. Tsuzukeru, continue to, right? So again, the subject's not clear. Keep running for something, keeps running for 24 hours. So the 24-hour thing is weird. The sense of motion, right? Of something running for 24 hours. And then the next line, Hashiri tsuzukeru sarame. Sort of, it's your destiny to keep running, to keep going like that. And that sense of a cycle, right, suggests to me that we're talking about either the sun or the planet Earth. And the planet Earth obviously revolves around the sun, so that's the one doing the moving. And the reason that I say this is because the subtitle, and again, this is like Akatsuki, which has a similar issue, that there's the kanji associated with the title. The title of the song is Amore, and then in the kanji it says Aoboshi, which means blue star. Ao Hoshi, Hoshi meaning star, and the H becomes a B because of the vocal placement. So blue star. So again, the question is it out there? A star that represents something. I've seen it translated as blue moon, which has a kind of romantic and familiar song title kind of idea, but I think that's stretching it a little, though I'm going to stretch it as well, because I'm going to argue that the star is really the Earth. We are the blue planet, right? And that from a distance, the blue planet looks like a blue star in the same way that Mars looks like a red star, right? So we are the blue planet, Aoboshi, and that's why we're running in a 24-hour cycle, if that makes sense. I should say, of course, I'm using the Zimmer video as my master track because I found that those are least likely to get blocked for copyright reasons because they are composites of multiple shows. And when it's just Sue Metal on stage with the Kami band, you're going to see less fluctuation. Oh, you see her up there at the top. That's a Tokyo Dome show, I think, when she was right at the top. Awesome. Aokiyami. Okay, so ripping through the blue darkness, the moonbeams stab Kanata Osasu Tsuki no Kage stabs in a faraway location. Yoi no hana ni teri ha ete yoi no hana, the flowers of the night. So the moonbeams reflect upon the flowers of the night, and Setsuna no Yume ni Mai Odoru, dancing in a momentary dream. Momentary is something that comes up a couple of times in this song, as it does in elsewhere. That sense of that sort of the fragility of the moment, which I've talked about before. So I'm just going to let it play, and then I'll talk about the larger meaning of the song once we've got through the whole lyric. So great. You know, I kind of convinced myself that I actually didn't like this song quite as much as Akatsuki, that it seemed like a little bit paler somehow. Akatsuki is a song that comes out of conflict and yearning and anguish. And the conviction that you find in that song, it seems, has more emotional power because it comes out of conflict. Conflict is the essence of drama. Happiness writes white and all that stuff, right? That we want a little pain to give the song an edge. And this song doesn't quite have that. It complicates somewhat at the end, but it's much more effusive. It's much more sort of singular in its conviction, and feels more like an anthem than Akatsuki does. And it's great. It works really well. Okay, shut up. What I was supposed to be talking about? Okay. Chikayo Yuki Muda. So the eyes of someone who made a promise. In their eyes, and again, this is very like Akatsuki. In their eyes, there's the sense of a gleaming future. Hikari Matoishi Aoki Sugata ni turning into a blue figure surrounded by light. And then sa, tsubusa, hirogete. And now that figure opens its wings. Okay, so this is the angel image that we saw before. So there's this sense of conviction, promise of the future, and then this sort of transformation, right? The figure is transformed into an angel. That's a really interesting idea, which we're going to come back to. As I said, let's get through the lyrics and then we'll talk. Good grief, girl, what are you doing? It's so... I'll have to cut that bit out. So good. So yeah, this is so this goes back to the first verse about the words of love resounding through the night sky. I think it's the same. I'm just looking over the lyric now. Yes, I think it's exactly the same. Okay. So words of love going out into space, breaking through, 24-hour circular pattern, keep running. And that conviction, again, and that gesture that she uses. Promise. And so the structure is almost exactly the same as Akatsuki. It even features that same little bass solo flurry, and then the sort of the dueling synchronized guitars, which, as I said, with Akatsuki, seem to sort of echo each other, play call and response, and then harmonize with each other to create that sort of that unified soaring melody that these guys are so great at. I mean, come on. The sheer showmanship is just great. It's just great. Okay. Lyrics. So this has some of that, more of that sort of romantic sensibility that Akatsuki does. Moshimo kimi o miyushinate mo. So kimi, this is the first time we've heard an object, right? If I lose sight of you, if I don't see you anymore, kokoro no koe wa utai tsuzukeru yo, then the singing in my heart will continue. The voice in my heart will continue to sing. Moshimo kimi ga hanarete itemo. Even if you're far away, kokoro no koe de utai tsuzukeru yo. So again, I'll keep singing with the voice of my heart, kokoro, heart. Kokoro no koe is the voice of my heart, and continue to sing, right? So this is the first time that we seem to get an object, right? That there's a you that is being addressed, but it's not clear who the you is. Is this somebody singing to their beloved, or is this the singer singing to the listener of the song, right? That you, the audience, or something more generalized. Amore. I mean, who wouldn't like this? This is...
愛の言葉響けよ空へ宇宙まで届けてアモーレ輝き放つ青き星がこの手に命を宿す
So, okay, so then we go back to the beginning, the words of love resounding in the night sky, sending Amore out into outer space, and then it changes. Kagayaki hanatsu aoki hoshiga. So the blue star that shines, which is there in the title, konote ni inochi o yarosu, brings the life into my hands. So again, whether the star is out there bringing light down to us, or whether the star is the planet which brings life, I think is debatable, but in a sense they both amount to the same thing. We're going to come back to it in a second. Okay, so we go back to that initial refrain, and then we add this extra line, ai o chikyu o sukue. So let love, i.e., save the earth. So again, there's an explicit reference to the planet, right? So whether we're thinking of the star as out there or here, I think in some ways it makes more sense that it's here. And we shift direction now, and this is where the thing starts to get a little bit more complex, right? Because the first thing we have to ask now is, if this is just a romantic song, a song about how much I love somebody, and how that love's going to somehow keep me going, then we have to ask, how does that love save the earth? And I think it requires us to sort of step back from it and start to integrate the different images and ideas that we have seen: the planet, the angel, and this idea of love as something that saves things. We add two lines that are not part of the rest of the song. Akaki tsuki ni terasarete setsuna no yume ga mata hajimaru. So now we get a reference to the moon, lit by the crimson moon, and again we're back to Akatsuki. Setsuna no yume. so this momentary dream begins all over again, right? So whatever the love that we have been talking about, it's something that is uh, is limited in time, but like the sort of 24-hour cycle keeps going, right? There's something maybe fragile, the sort of momentary dream idea, this idea of love, which then becomes something that restarts. Okay, so what is the song actually about? The title is Amore, which, as you know, most people have already know, is Italian for love, and as such, it is particularly associated with romantic love, right? The sort of the version of Amore, which is perhaps best known in English-speaking countries, is that very Italian mid 20th century croony romantic kind of model, as embodied by the Dean Martin song of the same title, right, which is all about falling in love and how you feel. In fact, let me play you a little bit of that, just so that you can get a sense of it.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Martin version of Amore, which everybody knows, it's the most famous one, but it's not the best. The best, and one of the greatest recordings on the internet, is, of course, this one.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. It's amore. Bells will ring, ting-a-ling-ling, ting-a-ling-ling, as a bell ring, amore. Amore. You're in love when you know that you feel it's amore to me, but you see, back in old Napoli, that's amore.
Awesome. Or just, you can't beat that. So, all joking aside, the version of Amore that song stands for is that conventional idea, romantic love between two people, okay? But as we've said in talking about the lyric, that doesn't quite work for this song, because yes, okay, when you're in love, it's a great feeling, and you feel like a beacon, and it shines out, especially in the early stages of love, right? But then the idea of love saving the earth, I think, gets difficult if what we're talking about is romantic love. And so I think, it's helpful to look beyond the conventional use of the term love in that sense. So let me pick up a couple of those things from the video and the title. So one of the things that I haven't said so far is that amore obviously is derived from amor, the Latin of which I'll talk about in a second. But Amore is also one of the names for Cupid. Cupid being the Roman god of love, the son of Mars and Venus. The Greek equivalent is Eros, thereby son of Ares and Aphrodite. Yes. And Cupid is traditionally figured in romantic love poetry and images and songs and so on as this playful figure. Um, frequently, the sort of cherubic, young boy, winged, right, like the angel image that we saw in the video, and armed with the bow and arrow, right, which he's floating around and he makes people fall in love with each other. In mythology, he's not a particularly complex figure, with the exception of the Cupid and Psyche story, which I'll mention in a sec. He's more a sort of instigator than he is a character, he's a plot device, something that sets things in motion because he makes people fall in love somewhat arbitrarily, and frequently, of course, in mythology, he's rendered as blindfolded, right? And the upbeat interpretation of that is, in Midsummer Night's Dream, Shakespeare says, "Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind, and therefore is winged Cupid painted blind." As I said, that's the optimistic view. The alternate view is that Cupid is blind because love is arbitrary and frequently doesn't make a lot of sense. We fall in love with people who are not suitable for us or may be actively bad for us, right? Everybody's been there at some point. You fall in love with somebody and it makes no sense to any of the people around you except to you, because you're within that, what the French called folie à deux, that shared madness, the madness between two people, which is love. Now, obviously, I don't think that Amore, the song, the BabyMetal song, is about this. So I think, it helps to move away from that notion of Cupid as the sort of cherubic, playful instigator of attraction, right, and obsession. Towards something else. Now, so there's the more mature representation of Cupid or Eros is in that more adult form, where and the story of Cupid and Psyche, Cupid representing sort of body and attraction and the heart. And Psyche representing the mind or the soul, and Cupid falls in love with Psyche, and they become a kind of whole, right? A complete, almost like a full person, yeah? And in the Renaissance and elsewhere, the Cupid and Psyche model was held up as the sort of ideal of love, where it's a more complete connection to another human being. But I think, there's also a kind of neo-classical association of that Cupid form with its Christian angelic equivalent. And I think in these images you see how much closer Cupid is to an angel. And that, I think, is much more plausible in the context of this song. And I think the winged figure that we see at the beginning of the video is more clearly angelic than it is Cupid-like. And part of the reason I think this is because, Cupid is outside the lovers. Cupid makes people fall in love and then takes off. That's the problem, right? That's also why he's winged, because it's like victory. He just sort of appears, makes you fall in love, and moves on to the next person. There's no so let's build a relationship. That's not what Cupid does. But the angel that we see in the video, I think, moves us into a different notion of love, which allows us to come back to that idea of the individual being transformed. And that requires us, I think, to complicate our sense of what love is, to render it more in those sort of angelic terms. And that moves us into a different, deeper register, which gets away from attraction and largely away from romantic love, unless we see romantic love as the first step of something bigger and more expansive that transforms the individual into a better person. Amore also, obviously, not only is it Italian, it also comes from the Latin, amo, meaning I love, and amor, meaning love, or amore in the ablative, because it's a declension, it's the third declension. And the verb, the word, the noun shifts according to how it's being used, right? The exact opposite of Japanese terms where we're struggling to find subject, object, and so on. In Latin, they're contained within the word. And amore is in the ablative case, which means by, with, or from love, which is interesting because then the end result is not love. Love becomes a tool. Love becomes a means to an end. And I think that's kind of interesting and expands the idea of love into something bigger than simply a romantic connection between two people. And, you know, coming from a broader perspective, there are ways in which we talk about love which is obviously more global, right, as seems appropriate for this song. Let me cue up another song for you geezers of my age who might remember this, from a Liverpool band called Frankie Goes to Hollywood, who were briefly very, very successful, particularly in the UK. And they had this, which was a Christmas #1 in Britain in the early 80s. I forget the exact year.
Feels like fire. I'm so in love with you. Purge the soul. Make love your goal. The power of love, a force from above, cleaning my soul.
So this was a really surprising video for this particular song, right? When it first came out, Frankie Goes to Hollywood were known for their fairly sexually explicit lyrics for the time. And so then we get this weird version of love, and the star, and you can see why I'm interested in this. The star that sets it up becomes the Christmas star, right, which leads the wise men to the stable where Jesus is born with Mary and Joseph, right? And you'll see here another moment in which we get another image from this song. I'm not saying that the BabyMetal Amore song is somehow derived from Frankie Goes to Hollywood. That's not my point. My point is that it's drawing on some of the same cultural associations, all right? So, like this one, for instance.
This time we go sublime, lovers entwined, divine, divine.
So what's going on here is we're expanding the notion of love to be something which is, in this case, expressly Christian. Now, again, I'm not saying that that's what this song is doing, and I'll come to the connection to Japan and Japanese culture specifically in a second. But what we're talking about is a New Testament notion of love, right, which is not simply romantic, right, but it's that love one another as I have loved you. That's the words of Jesus. And God so loved the world that he gave his only son. These are the terms that the New Testament uses to describe the way in which humanity can share in the essence of God being love, agape, as it appears in the New Testament in Greek. And it's that notion of love which is the creative word, right? As the song is very specific, not just talking about love, but we're talking about words of love as a kind of magical power, right? Ai no kotoba, the words of love, which are creative, which ultimately bring that life into my hands, um, and and has that feel of, you know, the not just let there be light, right? The power of the word of God in terms of creating that, not just the power of using language to communicate and create, but also that sense that the heart of that impulse is love, right? So the for John the Evangelist, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. So I don't want to get overly Christological about this, but I think this idea of creativity and language connected to love and transmitting it is central to the song. Not least, of course, because the song itself is language, and part of what BabyMetal are all about is spreading a version of the world. And I think that, as we've talked about before, that sense of inclusivity and community, that's another word for love. Not in a romantic sense, but in that way which is tied to a kind of selflessness and empathy, which is the core of how we, then even through sacrifice, go on to save the earth. And when later writers from St. Paul onwards, especially in the medieval period, are writing about this and trying to articulate it, they take the word amor and they break it down into other usable versions of love, including delectio, amicitia, which is friendship, and then the other one, which is most important, particularly for Thomas Aquinas, is caritas. And caritas is the notion of love, it's the root of our word charity, but that's not particularly helpful, because I think when we think of charity, we think of it as I don't know, maybe it's a sense of obligation, even a sense of superiority, giving things to the poor. But the idea of caritas is that whatever that charitable impulse is, it comes out of love. It comes from love, not for a single person, but for all people, by recognizing the essential similarity of all people, and then taking that benevolence and using it to transform ourselves. And this is one of the things Aquinas says, that it makes us more like God, to be kind, loving, generous, and all of this is included in the term love. And, there's a line in a Jim Morrison song, it's actually sort of a poem put to music, which the Doors did. It's on the American Prayer album, where he says, death makes angels of us all, and gives us wings where we had shoulders smooth as ravens' claws. His lyrics are not always on the money, but that's a good one. That idea of being transformed by death into angels and given wings. And I think in Thomas Aquinas, there's a similar thing going on, where he's talking not being transformed by death, but being transformed by love and made angelic, in that you start to resemble the divine, that you take that little element of your soul, which is God-given, and it becomes expansive, and it fills you up, and it becomes something that you share with other people. So then we get the idea, as we saw in the Frankie video, of the angel not just as a messenger, but as an envoy of love, right? Of delivering something, a core element of love, which passes along what is valuable and good to other people, something which is transformative. So the singer of the song, when we talk about that idea of, she becomes a winged figure, right? Love makes you an angel, and you take that to other people. But again, we're not simply talking about simply that romantic love, but it's now something much, much larger and deeper, something which can actually save the earth in ways that romantic love alone can't, right? Because now it becomes about connecting with other people, accepting other people, being generous to other people, breaking down conflict, and so on. And that, I think, is what the song is finally supposed to be about. And I'm not saying that this is a Christian song, because the same idea appears in Confucius, right? Sort of whatever that is, 5th century BC, and finds its way into Japan, later 6th century AD, I think, give or take. And in Confucius, the notion of Ren, I have no Chinese at all, so if that pronunciation is completely wrong, I apologize. Which is sometimes translated as a kind of humanity or humanness, a sort of altruism or benevolence that's supposed to be about the relationship between people, but at the same time encompasses more than that. It's an inner development towards an altruistic goal, which simultaneously realizes that one is never alone. Sorry, I'm reading. And that everyone has these relationships to fall back on, being a member of a family, the state, and the world. And so this, again, it's that sense of shared humanity, commonality, which is supposed to make you generous, kind, loving in the broadest possible sense. And that's what I think the song is finally about. And those last couple of lines, that bring us back to that sense of the momentary dream, the fragmentary nature of this, is the sort of the darker or sadder edge to it, that it's so hard to sustain this, because it's that this impulse, the conviction that comes with it, is something that is hard to maintain, to sustain. And so, as with Akatsuki, you have to somehow hold on to that spirit. But here, though, it's not simply holding on to a powerful memory of love with another person. It's something much, much larger. It's a message to the planet, right? And I think, the idea of it going out into outer space that makes the Earth into a beacon, right? But by the end of the song, it becomes clear that the purpose is not so much sending it out. That's a consequence. If we can make the planet full of love, then the real purpose is the saving of the planet. And you can think about that in ecological terms, but I think of it more in terms of humanity. And I think that's where we finish up. Here endeth the lesson. And in spite, of course, of all the sort of the layering and of serious ideas and things, which I have done, as I always do, and gone on for way, way, way too long, let's not forget that the song is, unlike Akatsuki or No Rain, No Rainbow, it's entirely positive. There's that sort of ripple at the end of anxiety about the sort of transitory nature of all this. But the song is still delivered with this effusive joy, which is the root of its power, right? And you hear that in every note of the song, that the positivity, the enthusiasm, the conviction, and the desire to spread it. Let me re-emphasize that. I'm not saying that this is a Christian song. I'm saying that a similar set of values permeate Japanese philosophical thought. It's not even necessarily religious, right? There's a sense of whether we think of God, or we think of the cosmos, or we think of it. That's not the point. The point is about looking for something bigger and better than yourself, larger than yourself, that you use as a way of channeling positive things to other people and improving yourself in the process, right? That's that idea of being transformed into the angel. So that's all I have today. And as usual, comment, like, subscribe, and we will continue. And again, let me just say, last year was pretty awful. And I think one of the things that kept me going, actually bizarrely, was deciding to do these videos. I had been a BabyMetal fan for years, quietly, privately because I don't join things. I sort of keep myself to myself. But in sort of coming out, as it were, as a BabyMetal fan, I found a community of people who were really supportive and positive and helpful. And so I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who's been watching these videos. I hope you find them interesting enough for me to keep doing them. And I hope everybody has a better year than the one that we just lived through. Yeah, whatever Amore means, that's what we take out into the world and beyond. Thanks. Talk to you soon.